All right, so we left off on Friday talking about the new labor reform that was starting in the United States in the mid 1800s, as well as how artisans are starting to get together and form basically an early version of unions. So that artisans' labor reform will progress. However, it's going to be very, very slow for them to do so. And so in 1840, President Martin Van Buren will approve a 10-hour workday for government employees. So this will be the first time that a law will be passed that will limit the number of hours in a day people are really going to work. Prior to that, it was always set by the managers. Now, a court case in Massachusetts will also rule that workers have the right to strike. And so, in the last slide in your notes, we talked about how strikes at the time were illegal in almost every state. However, because of Massachusetts and this court ruling, strikes will start to become legal throughout the United States. Artisans also won better pay because factory owners needed their skills. Basically, artisans realized that factory owners aren't going to be able to get by without them. And so, because of this, they're going to be able to get paid a lot more because owners are basically going to come to the realization of they actually need them to be able to function and operate the factories. Unskilled workers, though, they're going to be unable to bargain for better wages since their jobs require little to no training. They're going to be very easily replaced because basically these unskilled workers, their job is to like hit a button or basically do very, very simple tasks that requires very minimal training for them. And because these workers were easy to replace, employers didn't listen to their demands. And the workers are going to realize that these unskilled workers are going to realize they can't really strike because if they do, then well, they're going to get fired and replaced by somebody else who's willing to work without complaining. And women are also going to organize during this as well. Because of the success of trade unions, it's going to encourage other workers to organize. Workers in New England mills were especially eager to protest cuts in wages and unfair work rules. And many of these workers were women. So remember, in the mills, which are the textile plants, a lot of the workers in the mills will be women. Women workers will also face special problems that the men didn't see as much. First, they always earned less money than men did. That trend will continue through much of through all the 1800s and into the early 1900s, and you won't see that really start changing until the 1950s, 1960s. Second, most union leaders did not want women in their ranks, and this was for a couple of reasons. But mainly, they believed that a woman should not work outside the home, and most unions wanted to raise men's wages so that women wouldn't actually have to work. So, the union's goal would be we want to get more money for men. If men make more money, women don't actually have to work, and they can stay in that traditional role of working inside the home. And ethnic minorities in the North, they're going to face a lot of issues that will become more and more prevalent. So by the late 1840s, many factory workers in the North will be immigrants. An immigrant, though, is a person who enters a new country in order to settle there. In the 1840s and 1850s, about 4 million immigrants will arrive in the United States. And this number is only going to increase. They were attracted to the United States by for opportunities in farming, the land, and working in the city. So they're going to be coming for numerous reasons, but a couple of the main reasons will be certain groups want to move out of their countries, buy their own farmland, and be able to farm, or they want to leave their low-paying jobs in the country they're in to try to make a better life for them working in factories and mills in the cities. Economic opportunity would also be a key pull factor, and it would pull immigrants into the country. So we're going to talk about different things. Pull factors are what is happening inside the United States to bring people to the United States or pull people to the U.S. The other thing we'll talk about a little bit later on is a push factor. So what's pushing people away from their country to come to the United States? Among the new arrivals were immigrants from Britain who came to earn higher wages. In Britain, wages got stagnant and they really weren't going anywhere, they weren't increasing. But these British people felt that if they come to the United States with the skills they have, they will be able to make much more money working in our factories. And there was also a greater demand in the US for skilled machinists, carpenters, and miners, which is what a lot of these British immigrants are. Ireland and Germany will be a whole different animal. So we're first going to talk about Ireland. Next slide, we'll talk about Germany. In Ireland in the 1840s, a disease will destroy the harvest of potatoes, which was the main food for the poor people in Ireland. Other crops like wheat and oats, though, they won't be affected by this. However, the poor really didn't get a whole lot of wheat and oats. A lot of their crops would be potatoes. So at this time, Ireland, the entire island of Ireland and country of Ireland was under British rule, and most Irish crops will be exported to England. So they're going to use all the food grown in Ireland, sorry, to be transported over to England. When a large part of the potato crop, though, would be lost to disease, the British landowners really didn't care that it was lost and will continue to ship the wheat and oats to England, leaving very little for the Irish to actually make food with. So now the Irish have very little to eat, and this will cause a famine, and a famine is a severe shortage of food. And thousands of people in Ireland will start to die of starvation. And nearly as many people that die from starvation will also start to die from disease. And so this disaster will become known as the Great Irish Famine. In between 1845 and 1860, 1.5 million Irish will flee Ireland to come to the United States for a better life. And famine will also be a push factor. And remember that push factor is what causes the Irish to leave their country of Ireland to come to the United States. So, from Ireland and Germany, now we're going to switch gears to talk about the Germans. Many Germans will also start to arrive in the United States. And harsh weather conditions from 1829 to 1830 will result in a severe food shortage in Germany. So, unlike in Ireland, which was a disease that spread through the potato crop that killed all their food, the Germans are going to face bad weather conditions. In 1832, more than 10,000 Germans were coming to the US every year, seeking fertile farmland and a better life. So the Germans more so are going to move to the countryside and they're going to focus on farming, whereas the Irish, they're moving to the cities to get jobs in mills and factories. In 1848, revolutions will break out in several parts of Germany as well, and the rebels will fight for democratic reforms. However, the revolt will fail, which will force thousands more to leave Germany because if they stay there, they're probably going to get arrested and killed. So many other German immigrants will come simply to make a better life for themselves. They don't like not having a democratic government, and so they're going to look for democratic opportunities in other countries. So why not come to the United States? In between 1848 and 1860, nearly 1 million Germans will arrive in the United States. So immigrants will also help to enrich our nation. So immigrants will supply much of the labor that helped the nation's economy grow. Because there were not enough people in the United States to fill all these factory jobs and mill jobs and also keep farming, having immigrants come to the United States to fill these open job opportunities is greatly going to increase our economy. Although most of the Irish immigrants had been farmers, few of them would have enough money to even buy farmland. This is going to force them to stay in the cities and work in the factories and mills. Many, like I said, will settle in northern cities where low-paying factory jobs will be available to them. Other Irish workers will transform the environment by helping to build new canals and railroads. So the Irish are going to be more of the hard laborers. Immigrants from Germany will often have enough money, though, to move west and buy good farmland. These immigrants will transform the environment by turning prairie into farmland. So they're going to settle the Great Plains region of the United States that had originally been passed over by the people on their way to Oregon and Washington. Others in the Germans will be artisans and merchants. And a small minority of immigrants from Germany were Jewish, and sorry, part of this did get cut off, but German Jews began immigrating to the US in the 1820s, and by 1860, they had established 150 communities in the US. And so, US citizens will not always be a huge fan of immigrants. So, not everyone's going to welcome this flood of immigrants to the United States. In one group of Americans called nativists, wanted to preserve the country for native-born white citizens. So nativists believe that native-born people and citizens should have more rights than immigrants. And so they'll call laws to limit immigration and keep immigrants from voting. So originally, after 5 years of being in the country, a immigrant would be able to vote in an election. Now, under these new laws, they want that to go from 5 years to 21 years. And some protested that newcomers, quote unquote, stole jobs from native born Americans because they were willing to work for lower pay. And this argument is still being used today for people wanting to put quotas on immigration. And factory owners also would hire immigrants when workers went on strike. So if low paid, unskilled workers go on strike, they will get fired and replaced by immigrants. And many also didn't like the fact that the immigrants had different customs and also spoke different languages other than English. And they also blamed immigrants for the rising crime that was starting to occur in the cities. So by the 1850s, hostility to immigrants was so strong that nativists were going to actually form a brand new political party. And members were anti Catholic and anti immigrant. Remember, a lot of the people that came here were Protestants and not Catholic. And many meetings and rituals of the party will be kept a secret from other people and outside members. And this political party will be called the Know Nothing Party because members always answered, I know nothing, when they were asked about the political party. And the message of the party did gain supporters, but it would be limited to mainly the northern region of the United States. We're talking Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, states like that. And in 1856, Millard Fillmore, who was the Know Nothing Party candidate, will run for president and only win 21% of the popular vote. So he did not receive a ton of support, but 21% is still a good chunk of the nation. And soon after this, the party will die out. So now African Americans, during the nation's early years, slavery would be legal in the North. And I am going to pause this video and add a second video to finish off this lecture. We will pick up at this slide in the next video.